work of art. This is something that I made from a picture of my lovely husband when he was going scuba diving, and I've done all sorts of bits and bobs at the bottom. These little sequins from my wedding dress, so they're like a shoal of fish. We've got little peacock feathers there as other fish, and this is in my bedroom at home, and I've put my hair in a sort of mermaidy sort of thing today because this is an affirmation for me. I've put it in my bedroom because it was the thing I did that made me the most terrified in my entire life. So I wanted to talk about fear today because I'm not a brave person. I'm a very fearful person, but I can be brave. So I went scuba diving with my husband, even though my doctor said, you don't know how it's going to affect your asthma. And that's a huge metaphor for present day. I didn't know how it would be wearing a mask going into shops, and it's feel the fear and do it anyway. Actually, the mask is okay for me. But even going out the house at the moment, let alone working out outside the house, going for a run or anything, it's very anxiety making, nerve-wracking, terrifying to me, and I know millions of other people around the world. So Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway is a book, but the principles I take that, so you can Google that, Feel the Fear, Do It Anyway. The only way I feel brave is to do the scary thing. I only feel brave after I've done it. So I was terrified. I'm not very confident in the water. My mum never learnt to swim. I learnt to swim, but certainly not comfortable in it. So to go underwater, to have that breathing apparatus was really frightening. When I came up, I was still, frightened of doing it ever again. I don't think I ever will. I went on a parachute jump for charity. Would I ever do it again? Don't think so. I did an abseil down a 10-storey block of flats again for charity. Would I do it again? No. Did a marathon. All those things sound really big because I suppose they are. However, some of the day-to-day things at the moment are just as scary for me, and I know a lot of other people. So I've got quite bad asthma. Now that's ironic for me because I teach Keep Fit, I'm jumping up and down. It's only in the current situation that I've ever been categorised as high risk. It was very well managed asthma. I have to say it was, because at the beginning of the crisis, even while I wasn't teaching, my chest went into anxiety. So the more we are in the brains rehearsing the worst case scenario, the body reacts in the same way. So if you're nervous, absolutely normal. You want to just say to yourself, I'm nervous because that is rational. But if you find you're playing yourself into a bigger state by worst case scenario, if every time I go shopping, every time I put a mask on, this might happen, that might happen, my husband going back to work in his bar, it might happen. But if you're doing that loop, I call it the emotional wall of death. So you're sort of spiraling up and up and up, and your body doesn't know the difference between the fantasy of the worst case scenario. You know how you feel when you read the news or listen to the news or watch the news. Your whole body feels that fear building, and that's adrenaline. So the best way I know how to deal with fear is to move the body. Just do some stretches. If you're a very nervous person like me, building up your Keep Fit regime really helps. So I do shadow boxing. I do quite high intensity classes, but I also do more Pilates, yoga inspired classes. My total body workouts that I teach from my gym, I've got a bit of everything: mobility, strength, aerobics. And I do that to keep my body in the best nick it can be at my age, So I'm vulnerable for my age, being over 60, I'm vulnerable for my asthma. But being sensible, feel the fear and do it anyway, does not mean taking risks. In fact, it means for me to say to my bosses, and I felt that was a risk in itself, to say, I'm not coming back to the studios to teach inside the gym yet, I'm going to teach online. Technology is one of my biggest fears. So if you've not explored Zoom or anything else, we've got a new Mind Body app at the factory, one of the gyms where I work at. So all of that has been a very steep learning curve for me because I've always told myself I'm not very good at that. I'm always very fearful of doing something wrong, looking stupid, you know, not knowing all the answers. That's human. So whatever your fears are, I'm not saying confront them in the face. You don't go and face out a shark underwater, do you? But little practices. So if you're scared of a mask, put your mask on in your own home and try it for 10 minutes at a time, walking around your own home. If you're nervous about going outside, perhaps walk around the block. That's what I did for a start when I was going out. You still do all the things we're told to, advised to do, you know, the social distancing. The rules change every week, as we know. Keep up to date, but don't overindulge in news. You know, perhaps limit it to once a day or twice a day. The same with social media, unless it uplifts you. Don't be reading everybody else's horror stories, because it does that emotional wall of death. You start to feel a bit worried, then you feel more fearful, and by the end of it, your shoulders are up by the ears, your heart's palpitating. And I have given myself asthma attacks with fear rather than anything real. That fantasizing, expectations, appearing real. So fear, fantasy, expectations, appearing real, the FEAR, it ain't necessarily so. So if you've got like a little challenge, you know, meet it with the best will in the world. Take all the precautions that you can, but meet it. And if you're feeling particularly tense, my best advice is to move the body. You don't have to go quite as far as going scuba diving, but you know what I mean. And I'll see you next time.